A tiny child named Jack used to live with his father. The youngster used to love hearing his mother tell him the story of the giants before she passed away. The narrative goes like this. The monks discovered magic beans long ago, and believed they would create a gateway to God. Regretfully, upon ascending the stalk, they discovered an additional obstacle separating heaven and earth. The location was Gantua, the ferocious giant's abode. The giants plundered and stole from the human race when they descended to earth, and they also developed a craving for human flesh. The young Princess Isabel also finds great pleasure in the same tale. After reading it to her, her mother wonders if she's terrified of the giant's two-headed commander. The mother persists even when the girl says no. In an attempt to subjugate the giants, the monks had turned back to the black arts. Their hearts melted and they created a crown. The giants were taken prisoner by King Eric, who used the crown to enslave them and send them back to Gantua. When he cut off the stalk, his farm was once again at peace. The legend was born out of the existence of artifacts from that era that were interred alongside the monarch. Jack inquires about the return of the giants as his father tucks him into bed. He warns them they will be killed by the guardians of the monarch, who are descended from aristocratic blood. He is informed by his father that the giants are a myth. Isabel's mother informs her that, in a sense, King Eric was genuine. She is descended from him. Her mother discovers that her daughter has been wandering the castle when she claims to have visited his burial in the catacombs. She's not angry, though, since she wants her to learn about the world if she ever becomes queen, and has the ability to improve things in the world. The youngster keeps reading the story, which claims that the giants will return to fight Earth and exterminate the rest of Eric's relatives. After Jack's father leaves his room 10 years later, Jack's uncle tells him not to get sidetracked as he sends him to sell the horse in the city. Now that he is an adult, Jack goes to town and tries to sell his cart and horse. The town theater diverts his attention right away. The tale of King Eric and the giants is recounted by them. A stunning girl in the audience catches Jack's attention and realizes that he is staring at her. 3 men start harassing the girl before the performance ends, and Jack decides to intervene as they start to follow her outside. After taking a hit to the face, he begs the men to release the girl. Abruptly, a regal protector materializes behind him. To Jack's surprise, the men fall to their knees and apologize to the guardian, saying they don't want any trouble. They also drop when they see Princess Isabel get on one of the horses. The guardian motions for him to kneel as well as he turns around. He discovers that his cart has been taken outside the theater. Wick and Roderick discuss Roderick's prospective marriage to the princess. In the meantime, they encounter and let go of a monk. Roderick dashes to see if the relics are where they should be after they enter the room containing them. Even though the magic beans have been taken, King Eric's crown is still there. He gives Wick the command to locate the monk and shut the city's gates. When Jack appears to be selling his horse, the monk knows they are looking for him. If the monk had the money on him, Jack would cheerfully accept his offer of 10 coppers for the horse. The monk offers him the beans as collateral as a result. Unimpressed, Jack informs him that they are sacred relics, which he may trade for the money he was promised by going back to the convent. He is instructed by the monk not to misplace or spill the beans. The monk has already accepted the horse and is heading out of town, while Jack is still thinking about the offer. Wick sends his men after him. Before he can get away, they pursue him and seize him. Later, Isabel returns to the castle and apologizes to her guardian, Elmont, for making his work so difficult. Jack is receiving criticism from his uncle at the same time for trading the horse for the beans. He informs him that, at 18, he needs to mature, because the princess will become queen in the future. The king chastises her for leaving the palace without the guardians at the same moment. She queries why he would propose to her for marriage to a man twice, her age that she is not in love with, such as Roderick. When Isabel informs her father that she is not a weak and defenseless being, he comments that she is similar to her mother. Jack's uncle spills the beans, stating he will have to sell Jack's parents' remaining belongings because he is furious. Even when he begs him not to do that, the man refuses to give up. Isabel asks her father to grant her freedom to wander the land, but he refuses, saying he would rather lose her than her mother. She presents her case to the king, but he has the last say, and decrees that she will wed Roderick and remain in the palace. Disappointed, Isabel departs, but she defies her father once more that evening. Wick and Roderick are questioning the monk at the same time. He claims that because the beans were created via evil magic, they ought to have remained buried. There's no controlling the beans. He is killed by Roderick. Jack worries later that his uncle is out in the storm. The princess becomes lost at the same moment. She notices Jack's house has lights on and follows them. The princess knocks on Jack's door as he is about to leave to go find his uncle. As they converse, The water beneath the home rises and approaches a magic bean. He extends an invitation for her to come inside. Jack and Isabel discuss reading and travel. Pretending not to know each other, he tells her that he got into a fight at the market in the princess' honor. Jack queries her about the reason behind her flight. Jack shows that he knows who she is by kneeling, when she states that all she's looking for is an experience. After telling him to stand, Isabel expresses gratitude for his support of her honor. Two of them are still oblivious that the bean is starting to grow beneath the home. Giving her his favorite book about the giants, he wishes for her to discover what she's searching for. Abruptly, the house starts to tremble, and a massive stem breaks through the floors as it rises towards the sky. Isabel is imprisoned within the farmhouse as Jack is flung outside. Jack leaps to it when the growing beanstalk picks it up in order to assist Isabel. When Jack eventually returns to the house and attempts to enter, the elevation of the house starts rising. When Isabel opens the door, she almost shoves him aside. Despite holding onto her hand, he slips and slides down the beanstalk, stealing her mother's bracelet in the process. Jack makes it back down to the base of the stalk without incident, but he faints. When the king wakes him up the next morning, he asks him why he is wearing his daughter's jewelry. Elmont recognizes Jack from the market, and he is given permission to recount what transpired. He and Roderick will work together to locate and save Isabel for the Guardians. Subsequently, the men are climbing the stalk. Clearly, Roderick is planning something. Elmont is asked by Jack what he believes is up there, but the Guardian rejects the existence of giants. He advises the kid not to try to impress the princess since, even if she chooses not to wed Roderick, she will never be able to wed a commoner such as himself. Jack is aided by Cray, the other Guardian, in across the stalk, but he tragically trips and falls. They continue to climb the enormous beanstalk after saving him, losing individuals along the way at Roderick's request and without Elmont's knowledge. There are just 6 of them left. When they wake up the following morning, they find they have climbed to the top of the beanstalk. They venture into the world of the giants in pursuit of the princess because she isn't in Jack's home. Roderick stops Jack and threatens him for the remaining magic beans, as the Guardians start their chase. After giving them the purse, he receives a threat to remain silent. One of the beans is kept by Jack and placed in his locket. Elmont and Cray discover a hint that indicates Isabel departed in order to return. Following Isabel's marks, Cray and the others follow. But all of a sudden Jack discovers the book he gave her, telling the others that she must have concealed there. When they come across some broken branches, Jack assumes that she must be in difficulty because something large must have dragged her out of hiding. Elmont gives the men the command to divide into 2 groups. He, Cray, and Jack come onto some sheep and attempt to trap one by setting off a trap. Elmont senses something coming, so he starts cutting them off. Once outside, they take cover from a behemoth that is moving toward them. After devouring a sheep whole, it finds Cray and captures his sentinel. The giant catches up to the man in a matter of leaps as he runs. Elmont approaches Cray as it's about to be eaten and stabs him, only to be struck unconscious. They are both seized by the giant and carried off. Jack adheres to it. As the other group reaches a waterfall, Roderick is instructed to sit and take a break by the Guardian while he searches for an alternate route. They shove him off the cliff after tricking him. Wick is suddenly seized by a giant who devours him. Roderick arrives at the crown in time to save himself from the appearance of another giant. Jack entered one of their cities after trailing the behemoth. A giant is holding Isabel captive at the same time, and interrogating her about how she got there. She refuses to respond. She responds that she is alone when it asks whether there are other people pursuing her. However, General Fallon, the 2-headed giant, is aware that Isabel is descended from King Eric. Telling his warriors that the humans have come back, he shows her around. Abruptly, Cray and Elmont are also brought there by the second giant. The giant's commander interrogates the 2 of them, and when Cray irritates him, it devours him. Jack tracks the chaos to the enormous metropolis, but not before he must run for his life from 2 enormous opponents. After arguing with another giant about who has the right to eat Isabel, the general warns Elmont that he will do so if he doesn't respond to his questions. Suddenly, Roderick appears wearing the crown. Even the general bows down to the giants. When he arrives, Elmont is pleased, but Roderick simply ascends to the throne. To the amazement of both himself and Isabel, Roderick commands the giants to battle as his army and conquer the earth in his stead as their king. At dawn, he orders them to get ready for fight. General Fallon finds that objectionable. Jack discovers the room containing all the treasure the giants had taken in the interim, then looks out over the city and hears Isabel pleading with the people taking her away for her life. Elmont and her are getting ready to be devoured. As the enormous cook searches for something, Jack shows up to save them. When he is unable to free Isabel, he approaches Elmont and hands him a knife. After returning and nearly killing Elmont with a gigantic pick, The giant places him in the oven. Jack reaches over to grab him before he cooks, but not before he lets himself out of the dough. As Jack grabs one of the cooking knives and stabs the giant abruptly pulls Isabel out of the cage and prepares to slice her up. Elmont lets go, and Isabel runs away while Jack hangs onto the giant's back. It efficiently completes the task when it strikes the wall with itself. Jack informs them that he knows a way out after impressing Elmont with his ability to kill a monster. At the base of the stalk, one of the king's generals inquires as to whether the beanstalk should be chopped down. The man claims that the stalk is a way to both get up and get down. They make assumptions about what might happen next. Roderick tells one of the giants to wait for the others at the edge while they return to Gantua. Elmont bemoans his friend's passing while Jack cleans Isabel's wound. She regrets leaving and starting this because of it. But if she hadn't, Roderick would have abruptly assumed control of the realm. Jack informs her. He informs her that they must bring her back so that, as queen, she may improve the lot of everyone. When her bleeding stops, Elmont begs to go where the monster is sleeping. When they follow the river to its brink, Jack believes that a beehive would be a good tool to use to rouse him. The two men flee back to conceal after approaching the sleeping giant and hiding the hive under his mask. After a little period of time, they witness the giant waking up, tripping over himself, and ultimately falling off the cliff. Jack and Isabel embrace, but Elmont is not fond of it. Elmont informs them as they approach the brink that he must stay behind to look after Roderick. He appoints Jack as the princess protector and orders him to bring her home. After saying their goodbyes, Isabel and him head out. The behemoth collapses at the base of the stalk. When the king notices him, he gives his general the order to chop down the beanstalk for the good of the realm. The princess hasn't arrived yet, so the king gets his sword and approaches to cut it while pleading with his daughter for forgiveness. The general is hesitant. The general gives his men the command to cut the stalk after observing the king's determination. At the same time, Jack and Isabel descend the stalk and discover their city at its base. After sharing a kiss, they ponder the actions of the folks down the stalk. The serious work of pulling down the beanstalk has begun. Elmont is waiting for Roderick at the outskirts of Gantua. In the meantime, the massive army that is approaching wakes him up. When Roderick gets there and approaches the edge, Elmont attacks him out of the blue, causing him to spill the remaining beans. They struggle after falling into the cave at the entrance. General Fallon orders his troops to dig Roderick out when he asks the giants for assistance. When Elmont tries to seize Roderick's sword and inflict injuries on him, Roderick wins the battle. However, Elmont snatches his dagger and stabs Roderick after he is nearly pushed off the edge once more by Roderick. The giants succeed in creating a hole in the stone, but they are unable to reach Roderick before he passes away. They are successful in capturing the throne. Nevertheless, General Fallon transforms into the giant's ruler by donning it as a ring. The men are back at the base of the stalk, having cut off a portion of it. Higher up, Isabel and Jack feel things start to quake and split apart. The men beneath the stalk start to feel the weight of its enormous mass. Isabel is told to hold on by Jack. General Fallon watches as Elmont leaps to the top of the stalk before it totally falls. Jack utilizes one of the stalk's stems as a rope to swing away from it, as he and Isabel ride it. Elmont's stalk continues until it nearly reaches the palace, at which point it splits, allowing him to leap off as well. The king believes he has lost his daughter, which makes him feel terrible. His general appears out of nowhere and carries her over to him. When Isabel tells him about Roderick, he apologizes. The king pursues Jack after he departs, and Isabel inquires about him. Saying he can't do enough for Jack as a father, he gives him a reward. As they say their goodbyes, he gives Isabel the book to remember him by when she emerges donning armor. Her father takes her on a ride to the palace. General Fallon discovers the remaining miraculous beans concurrently. When he tosses them into the water, they begin to sprout right away. The beans are just starting to bloom on the very border of their property, so General Fallon gets his men ready. The stalks are not yet fully grown when the giants start to climb and force them down. Fallon, the general, also jumps on. When Jack discovers his horse on Earth and witnesses the giants descending, he mounts his horse to alert the monarch. A short while later, the giants show up. As Jack approaches the king and Isabel to inform them about the giants, they notice the giants behind him. Jack then orders a monk to sound the alarm. The giants catch up and slay the king's men as everyone rushes back toward the city. General Fallon pursues the king, but the first beanstalk slows them down. Elmont prepares the army in the city, preparing everything from the hot oil to the archers. Elmont is waiting for the giants to enter the city so they can light the oil, but they are hot on Jack's tail. Before Jack can cross the drawbridge, the king arrives in the city and raises it. He leaps on, but General Fallon also does. He gets burned in the oil after Elmont pushes him off the bridge. While Fallon lives beneath the surface, The other giants make ready to enter the city. Elmont gets back together with Isabel and Jack. He informs the king that the giants are in control of the crown, and that they have thrown a bell into the city before using hooks to grab hold of the drawbridge. Isabel is instructed by the king to go to his apartments and fire a beacon in order to alert the other countries. He instructs Jack to take care of her. Elmont holds the drawbridge together with the others. Jack follows Isabel as she takes him past King Eric's tomb, and through the royal catacombs as a shortcut. As they enter the royal hall, they hear something beneath the surface. They flee as General Fallon pushes through it. The giants simply keep destroying the army's ranks, despite their best efforts to hold them off. They launch fiery threes at the city. When the humans fire spears at the giants, they manage to make some progress in the battle, but the giants just retaliate by destroying their weapons. As the princess and Jack hide in the king's robe, Fallon can smell them. When he discovers them, they flee up a narrow stairway. In an attempt to reach them, Fallon breaches a wall, seizes Isabel, and then seizes Jack when he tries to kill him. The giant pulls out the last magic bean and hurls it into his mouth just as he is ready to devour Jack whole. He dies and the palace is destroyed as the bean starts to sprout in his stomach and emerges from him. His hand holding the crown rests next to Jack as fragments of the gigantic descend around Jack and Isabel. As the drawbridge is being pulled down by the last giants, the humans close the city's entrances. The men prepare for the giants' arrival and watch for their breakthrough. The giants lower their swords and bow in front of the human army, as they suddenly witness the beanstalk tearing apart the palace. When Jack, donning the crown, emerges, Isabel grasps his hand. Many years later, Jack is telling his kids the story's conclusion, in which the princess marries her farm boy prince, and the giants are forced to return to their homeland. Concerned that the giants may return, the children inquire about the crown. He assures them that it is in a safe place as Isabel joins them. As the crown is being rebuilt to resemble the imperial state crown of today, Jack relates the giant's tale to them. Once more, a guide informs some students about the crown's existence today. Westminster Abbey in London is the secure location for the event.